You want to know the moment you've reached the heart of someone who runs from love? It's not when they finally say, I trust you. It's when they no longer need to run. See, every avoidant heart is a fortress built not out of arrogance, but out of pain. Somewhere along their journey, love became dangerous. Connection became the battlefield. And so they learned to survive by withdrawing, by controlling, by appearing untouchable. But the human soul was never designed to live behind walls. Every soul, no matter how guarded, aches to be seen, to be held without judgment, to rest in a love that doesn't demand they be anything other than themselves. So how do you reach a heart like that? Not by chasing it, not by convincing it. You reach it by embodying what it's been missing. Safety, truth, and unwavering presence. When your love becomes a space, not a cage, when your energy says, I'm not here to fix you, I'm here to love you as you rise, something divine happens. The avoidant begins to lean in, slowly, carefully, but genuinely. You'll see it in the subtle things. Their eyes linger longer, their voice softens. They stop rehearsing their exits. They may even start to share stories they swore they'd take to the grave. That's not weakness, that's holy surrender. That's trust awakening after years of silence. And here's the secret most people miss. You don't awaken that in someone else unless you've first awakened it within yourself. Because love that frees the avoidant isn't needy love. It's not, I need you to open up so I can feel worthy. It's love that says, I am already whole, and I see the wholeness in you, even when you don't. You want to reach the avoidant's heart? Be the calm in their storm. Be the consistency in their chaos. Be the reflection that reminds them love isn't supposed to hurt. It's supposed to heal. And one day, without announcement, they'll let you in. They'll stop hiding their fear and start showing you their truth. They'll give you the most sacred thing they have, their unguarded self. That's the miracle moment. That's when you know you've reached their heart. Because love, real love, doesn't demand transformation. It inspires it. It doesn't chase, it attracts, it doesn't imprison, it liberates. So stand tall in your love. Let your presence be the proof that healing is possible. And when you've reached that heart that once seemed unreachable, I'll understand, you didn't just touch another soul. You awakened your own divine capacity to love beyond fear. That is the power that changes everything. Emotional safety is the foundation of all genuine connection. It's the invisible thread that allows two people to move from guardedness to openness, from survival mode to true intimacy. When someone who's emotionally avoidant begins to feel safe in your presence, something sacred begins to unfold. Their heart, which has long been armored against rejection and control, starts to relax. Not because you demanded it, but because they finally sense they won't be punished for being real. You see, avoidant individuals aren't cold by nature. They've just learned that closeness comes with danger. Somewhere in their story, love meant obligation, vulnerability meant exposure, and intimacy came with the risk of losing themselves. Their nervous system equates connection with pain. So they retreat, not because they don't care, but because they care so deeply it terrifies them. They believe safety lies in distance. But true safety, the kind that disarms the avoidant heart, doesn't come from avoidance. It comes from being seen without fear. When emotional safety is present, the avoidant begins to notice that their defenses are no longer serving them. They start to feel that the love around them isn't here to invade, but to invite. This shift happens subtly, almost imperceptibly. They stop scanning for danger in every interaction. They start listening instead of bracing. And for perhaps the first time, they experience love that feels like home, not captivity. Creating that kind of safety requires more than words. It requires energetic alignment. It's about consistency between your intention, your tone, and your behavior. When you say, it's okay, you can take your time, but your energy screams, I need you to open up right now, the avoidant senses that incongruence instantly. But when your actions, your presence, and your energy all communicate the same truth, I am here and you are free, they begin to exhale. Safety isn't found in perfection, it's found in authenticity. Emotional safety means that the other person doesn't have to perform to keep your love. They don't have to be endlessly agreeable, charming, or emotionally available on demand. They can have off days. They can pull back. They can be human. And you, instead of king that personally, hold the space for their humanity without needing to control it. That's when trust is born. Trust doesn't blossom through grand gestures. It's built moment by moment, through your willingness to remain stable when the other person is unsure. Think about it like this. An avoidant heart is like a wild animal that has been caged for too long. The moment you fling the door open and rush in to embrace it, it bolts. But if you simply sit nearby, grounded, patient, and non-threatening, over time it begins to sense that it can approach without being trapped. Eventually, it will come closer, not because you chased it, but because it chose to trust you. That's the power of emotional safety. It invites, never demands, and here's the divine paradox. You create emotional safety for others only when you've cultivated it within yourself. If your inner world is chaotic, if you're ruled by fear or the need to control, your energy will communicate that no matter how kind your words are. But when you've done the inner work, when you've learned to be a safe space for your own emotions, you naturally radiate safety to others. Your calm becomes contagious. Your presence becomes healing. When an avoidant person starts to feel emotionally safe, they may not say it out loud. You'll see it in small, sacred shifts. They'll start sharing details about their life they never used to. They'll allow silence instead of filling it with withdrawal. They'll start leaning towards you instead of away. That's their heart testing the waters, saying, "Can I really trust this? Can I be me here?" And when your response remains steady, when you don't flinch at their honesty or pressure them to go faster, they begin to believe that love doesn't have to hurt, that it's possible to stay and still feel free. That's the moment emotional safety does its quiet miracle. It transforms self-protection into connection. The fortress begins to soften, and behind those walls a heart finally dares to hope again. Consistency is the silent force that breaks through resistance. It's not the loud declarations of love or the grand cinematic gestures that reach the heart of someone who's avoidant. It's the quiet, unwavering steadiness that proves love doesn't have to be chaotic. The avoidant heart has learned that relationships come with instability. Promises are made and broken. People say one thing and do another. And because of that, they've come to trust only one thing: inconsistency. They've built their walls not out of cruelty, but out of self-preservation. So when someone enters their life who is steady, emotionally grounded, patient, and true, they don't know what to do with it. It feels foreign. It feels unsafe precisely because it's new. Their mind tells them it's too good to be real. Their body expects the same old pattern, closeness followed by pain. But consistency has a different rhythm. It doesn't chase. It doesn't withdraw. It simply remains. It shows up again and again until the nervous system that once braced for abandonment begins to rest. That's how the heart of an avoidant begins to soften. Not through pressure, not through pleading, but through presence. Consistency communicates something words never can. You are safe here. I am who I say I am. For a person who has lived in emotional survival mode, that message is revolutionary. They've been trained to believe that love is unpredictable, that people leave when it gets hard, that connection means losing control. But when you consistently show up with authenticity, when your energy remains calm even when theirs wavers, you start to rewrite that story. Consistency doesn't mean perfection. It means congruence. It means your words and actions are aligned. It means that even when you're frustrated, you communicate with respect. It means that when you say, "I'll give you space," you actually honor it, not as a punishment, but as an act of love. Every time you follow through, you chip away at the fear that tells them people can't be trusted. It's through those small, consistent acts that trust begins to take root. And here's the thing. Avoidant individuals often test that consistency without realizing it. They might pull back, ignore messages, or seem indifferent. They're not always trying to hurt you. They're trying to see if you'll stay true when they create distance. In their world, distance equals control, and control equals safety. But when you respond with calm and respect instead of panic or guilt, you're sending a different message. I'm not here to control you. I'm here to love you without needing to chase you. That kind of consistency rewires their internal narrative about love. Think of consistency as the bridge between fear and trust. Every time you remain steady in your truth, you strengthen that bridge. Over time, the avoidant begins to realize that you're not a storm waiting to erupt. You're a foundation they can lean on. They begin to feel safe enough to explore closeness, not because you forced them, but because your energy proved it was safe to come near. Consistency also means staying true to yourself. It's not about bending over backward to earn their affection or proving your worth through self-sacrifice. It's about holding your own boundaries while remaining kind and open. When you say what you mean and do what you say, you model emotional integrity. And that integrity is magnetic to the avoidant heart. It shows them love can exist without chaos, without control, without fear. There's a divine principle woven into this truth: what you consistently embody, you teach. If you embody peace, you teach peace. If you embody trust, you teach trust. And when the avoidant encounters that energy long enough, they begin to mirror it. They start to internalize that steadiness as part of their own emotional world. Slowly, they become less reactive, more open, more willing to meet you halfway. At first, your consistency might go unnoticed. It may even be met with skepticism or withdrawal. But the longer you stay authentic and steady, not as a strategy to win them, but as an expression of who you are, the more undeniable your energy becomes. The avoidant may not say it out loud, but something inside them shifts. They start to realize, maybe this time is different. Maybe love doesn't have to end in loss. Maybe I can stay. That's the quiet power of consistency. It dismantles fear without confrontation. It heals without forcing. It shows up where words fall short. And eventually, it becomes the language the avoidant heart finally understands. You are safe, and I'm not going anywhere just because you need time. Through that steady rhythm of presence, love stops being a battlefield and becomes something sacred, predictable not in dullness, but in peace. Love without control is one of the rarest and most powerful forms of love that exists. It's the kind of love that doesn't seek to possess, fix, or mold the other person. It simply allows them to be. For the avoidant heart, this kind of love feels almost impossible to believe. They've often been conditioned to associate love with obligation, manipulation, or loss of freedom. To them, love has always meant rendering control, and control has been their only form of safety. So they keep their distance, mistaking independence for protection. Yet, when they encounter love that doesn't demand, doesn't cling, doesn't control, they begin to see a reflection of what true freedom and connection actually looks like. Love without control says, I see you, and I honor your space. It recognizes that another person's journey, emotions, and timing are sacred. It doesn't try to force closeness or accelerate intimacy. It allows the relationship to unfold at its natural pace, trusting that what is genuine doesn't need to be pushed. This kind of love doesn't come from a place of neediness. It comes from a place of wholeness. It's rooted in knowing that you can love deeply without losing yourself. Avoidant individuals are hyper-aware of energetic pressure. When they sense that someone needs them to change, to open up, or to reciprocate in a specific way, they instinctively withdraw. It's not because they don't care. It's because that energy reminds them of times they felt trapped or powerless. Love without control removes that pressure. It tells them, you don't owe me your vulnerability. You don't have to perform to keep my affection. That message disarms their defenses faster than any demand for closeness ever could. When love is free of control, it becomes a space of invitation rather than expectation. You stop trying to make the avoidant love you back in a certain way and instead focus on embodying love itself. Your energy becomes open, calm, and non-possessive. You no longer need them to act a certain way for you to feel secure. And paradoxically, that freedom is what makes them feel safe enough to move closer. The less you try to pull them in, the more they begin to trust that they won't lose themselves in the process of loving you. This kind of love mirrors divine principles. It's patient, it's kind, and it's unconditional. It doesn't love because of what it gets. It loves because it chooses to. It's the same energy that created the universe. Expansive, non-controlling, endlessly generous. Love in its highest form never violates free will. It doesn't dominate or manipulate. It doesn't need to win. It simply exists as truth, and in that truth, others find safety. Loving without control requires emotional maturity. It asks you to master your own fear of loss, your own need to manage outcomes. It challenges you to trust that what's real will remain, even without your interference. When you reach that level of self-trust, you no longer grasp at love. You attract it. You no longer chase closeness. You allow it to unfold naturally. The avoidant, sensing that you don't need to consume them to feel fulfilled, begins to relax. They start to believe that love doesn't have to come with conditions. You'll know you are practicing love without control when you stop trying to interpret their every move. You stop using their withdrawal as evidence that you're unworthy. Instead, you remain centered in your own peace. You communicate with honesty but without urgency. You give space without resentment. And most importantly, you let go of the illusion that love must always look a certain way. Love, when it's true, evolves beyond control. It flows. Over time, the avoidant begins to feel something they haven't felt in years: trust. Not because you convinced them, but because you created a relationship that didn't demand their surrender. They start to approach, not out of fear of losing you, but out of genuine desire to connect. They open their hearts because they finally see that love doesn't require them to give up who they are. It invites them to become more of themselves. That's the paradox of love without control. When you stop trying to hold on so tightly, what's meant for you finds its way naturally. The avoidant, once terrified of being consumed by love, discovers that real love is not a cage, it's an open field. And in that openness, they begin to understand that love isn't about possession at all. It's about freedom, truth, and the courage to stay connected while remaining whole. Trust beyond words is the kind of trust that doesn't need to be spoken. It's felt, lived, and proven through consistent alignment between what you say and who you are. For someone with an avoidant heart, words have often lost their meaning. They've heard promises before. They've seen declarations of love fade into disappointment, and they've learned that people often say things they don't mean. So they've stopped believing in language alone. For them, trust isn't built through what you tell them. It's built through what you repeatedly show them. It's not about convincing, it's about embodying. The avoidant heart has been trained to watch, not to listen. They notice energy, tone, timing, and the spaces between your words. They can sense when your actions are motivated by anxiety rather than authenticity. They can feel when your reassurance is more about calming your own insecurity than supporting their peace. That's why trust for them doesn't come easily. It requires something deeper than verbal affirmation. They're not looking for perfection, they're looking for congruence. They want to know that who you are when things are easy is the same person who shows up when things get hard. Trust beyond words is built in the small, ordinary moments. It's when you respect their boundaries instead of pushing against them. It's when you keep your promises, even the small ones. It's when you're honest about what you feel without using guilt or pressure to get a reaction. It's when you can sit in silence with them and not fill the space with noise. Every one of those moments communicates safety in a language that goes far beyond speech. Avoidant individuals are deeply attuned to inconsistency because inconsistency once hurt them. They've learned to rely on themselves because others have been unreliable. When they start to see that your words and actions match, that you do what you say, that your presence doesn't vanish when they pull back, they start to believe that maybe this connection is different. But that belief doesn't come overnight. It takes time for their nervous system to unlearn what it's been taught for years, that intimacy equals danger. Trust beyond words gives them the evidence they need to rewrite that belief. It's easy to say, "I'm here for you." It's harder to stay calm when they test that statement by withdrawing or shutting down. But that's the moment where real trust is built, not in the comfort, but in the discomfort. When you respond to distance with understanding rather than punishment, you are teaching them that love doesn't disappear when things feel uncertain. When you hold space instead of demanding closeness, you're showing them that connection doesn't have to come at the cost of freedom. Those are the actions that speak louder than any declaration ever could. Trust beyond words also means transparency. It means being honest about your intentions, your needs, and your limitations. The avoidant heart finds comfort not in perfection, but in clarity. They don't need you to always know the right thing to say. They need to. Know that when you don't, you'll tell the truth. Vulnerability in its pure form builds trust because it shows that you're not playing a role. You're being real. When you can admit, "I don't have all the answers, but I'm not going anywhere," it dismantles the illusion that love must be flawless to be safe. There's a divine principle behind this. Truth is the highest form of love, and truth, when consistently lived, becomes trust. You cannot fake it, because energy never lies. The avoidant may not be consciously analyzing your behavior, but their spirit feels your alignment, or your lack of it. When your words, actions, and intentions move in harmony, they sense stability. That stability is the medicine they've been craving. Over time, trust beyond words transforms the atmosphere of the relationship. The avoidant stops waiting for betrayal and starts allowing connection. They begin to open up in small ways, sharing thoughts they usually keep to themselves, expressing needs instead of suppressing them, staying present instead of retreating. These are monumental shifts, even if they seem subtle. They mark the beginning of healing, their realization that love can be trusted again, ultimate. Trust beyond words isn't about grand performances or constant reassurance. It's about being a steady truth in a world that has often lied to them. It's about embodying integrity so clearly that the avoidant no longer has to second-guess your presence. When your essence, not just your language, communicates loyalty and safety, that's when you've reached the place no words ever could. The core of their guarded heart, where love finally feels safe enough to stay. When an avoidant person starts letting you see their fear, that's the moment you know you've touched something sacred. It's not when they say, "I love you," or when they decide to spend more time with you. It's when they reveal the part of themselves they've spent years hiding. For someone who's avoidant, fear isn't just an emotion, it's a survival mechanism. It's the guard that keeps them safe from disappointment, rejection, or control. To them, showing fear means showing weakness, and weakness has never felt safe. So they wear confidence like armor. They appear independent, in control, detached. But underneath that cool composure lies a tender, anxious heart that's been taught that vulnerability leads to pain. When you beg in to reach the heart of someone like this, the first cracks in that armor aren't anger or affection. They're fear. You'll see it in small, almost imperceptible moments. Their eyes soften when they talk about their past. They hesitate before opening up, but don't completely shut down. They admit, even indirectly, that closeness scares them. That confession, even if it's subtle, is monumental, because for the avoidant, acknowledging fear is an act of profound courage. It's an unspoken way of saying, "I trust you enough to show you what I'm still afraid of." This shift doesn't happen because you demanded openness. It happens because you created an atmosphere where fear is safe to exist. The avoidant heart doesn't respond to pressure. It responds to presence. When your energy is calm and non-judgmental, when you can listen without trying to fix or interpret, you communicate something powerful, that their fear is not too much for you to handle. And that's what begins to change everything. You see, for most avoidant individuals, fear has always led to rejection. When they were young, their emotions may have been dismissed or ignored. They learned that to be loved, they had to be self-sufficient. So they buried their fear deep beneath logic, independence, and control. But no matter how far they've pushed it down, fear remains a part of them, a part that longs to be seen, not shamed. When they finally let you witness it, you're witnessing their most human truth. Letting you see their fear doesn't always look dramatic. Sometimes it's in the way they finally admit they don't have it all together. Sometimes it's a shaky confession about how relationships make them anxious. Sometimes it's silence, the kind that comes not from withdrawal but from inner conflict. They're fighting the instinct to run while trying to stay. When that happens, your response matters more than anything. If you react with impatience, criticism, or emotional intensity, you confirm their old belief that vulnerability is dangerous. But if you meet their fear with calm understanding, with love that doesn't shrink or overextend, you help rewrite their story of what love can be. Reaching this point in an avoidance heart also means understanding that fear doesn't vanish overnight. It's a companion that may resurface again and again, especially when closeness deepens. But every time they show you that fear you respond with safety instead of judgment, the fear loses a little more power. Trust grows in its place. You become not their rescuer, but their safe witness, the one who holds the space for their humanity without needing to control it. There's something profoundly divine about this process, because fear is often the final wall between the soul and love. When someone allows you to see their fear, they're inviting you into their most sacred territory, the place where healing happens. You're not just witnessing vulnerability, you're witnessing transformation. The avoidant begins to realize that fear doesn't have to be hidden to be loved. It can be embraced, understood, even shared. And in that moment, something miraculous unfolds. Their love becomes deeper, more authentic. It's no longer a performance or a guarded offering. It's real. They may still retreat at times, but now they return faster. They communicate more honestly. They let you see the trembling behind their strength, because they finally understand that love isn't about pretending to be fearless. It's about learning that fear itself can exist safely in the presence of love. That's how you know you've reached the avoidant. T's heart, not because they've stopped being afraid, but because they've decided to stop hiding their fear from you. They've chosen truth over performance, presence over protection. And that single act of courage means more than any declaration of love, because it's proof that for the first time they feel safe enough to be fully human in front of you. When you've truly reached an avoidance heart, one of the most powerful shifts you'll notice is that your growth begins to inspire their surrender. The avoidant has spent much of their life trying to maintain control over their emotions, their environment, and their relationships, because control feels like safety. But what breaks through those walls isn't persuasion or pleading. It's your example. When you evolve, when you ground yourself in peace, when you show that love can exist without fear, they begin to feel something they haven't felt in a long time. Permission to soften. Your growth becomes a mirror that reflects their potential for healing. Avoidant individuals are often attracted to strength, but not the kind of strength that dominates or demands. They are drawn to the strength that comes from emotional stability, the kind that says, I don't need to control you or the outcome to feel secure. When you reach that level of inner maturity, it speaks louder than any words could. Your calm energy, your consistency, and your emotional independence start to create a new emotional reality for them. You become living proof that love doesn't have to feel like a loss of power. And in that realization, they begin to lower their defenses. Your growth teaches through vibration, not instruction. The avoidant learns through what they observe and feel more than what they're told. When you remain grounded through their moments of distance, when you choose peace over panic, you silently communicate a deeper truth. Love can coexist with freedom. You stop chasing, you stop fixing, and you stop trying to pull them closer. Instead, you honor their pace while continuing to grow within yourself. That energy becomes magnetic. It draws them in without pressure because they can feel that your love is no longer tied to fear or control. As you evolve, the avoidant begins to notice that your energy feels different. You no longer react from your wounds. You respond from wisdom. You no longer take their withdrawal personally because why? Understand it's not rejection. It's protection. This awareness changes the dynamic entirely. Instead of creating tension, your emotional balance creates harmony. Your peace becomes an invitation for them to step out of survival mode and into trust. They begin to understand that love doesn't have to threaten their independence, it can actually strengthen it. What makes this so transformative is that your growth breaks the emotional pattern they're used to. Most avoidant individuals have experienced relationships filled with reactivity and expectation. They've learned to anticipate emotional chaos when someone gets too close. But when your growth leads you to operate from a higher level of self-awareness, that chaos no longer exists. You don't play out their old story. You write a new one, and that's what allows their heart to slowly surrender. Surrender for the avoidant doesn't mean giving up control to another person. It means releasing control as a form of protection. It means letting love in without feeling the need to run. It means realizing that vulnerability doesn't equal danger and that closeness can coexist with personal freedom, but they can only learn that truth by what? Ching it in action. Your growth, your patience, your boundaries, your compassion becomes the living example that teaches them how to trust love again. This is why your healing matters so much. The more you ground yourself in self-love, the less you unconsciously contribute to the avoidance fear. You stop feeding the narrative that love demands self-betrayal. You become a model of balanced energy, open yet strong, loving yet self-contained. And that balance speaks directly to the part of them that has always longed for connection but never felt safe enough to pursue it. Your light shows them that connection doesn't have to consume. It can uplift. Over time, this kind of influence transforms the relationship into something spiritual. It stops being about who's chasing or withdrawing and starts being about mutual evolution. The avoidant begins to match your growth. They start to open up, not because you demanded it, but because your energy made it safe to do so. They begin to share emotions they once buried. They start to lean into love instead of running from it. That is the divine exchange. Your transformation creates space for theirs, and that's the miracle of growth and love went on. Each person chooses healing. The energy of the relationship changes. The avoidant no longer sees love as a threat, but as a reflection of freedom. They surrender not out of submission, but out of trust. Because your growth showed them that love isn't something to fear, it's something to grow within. Your peace called their heart home, and in that space of mutual evolution, love finally becomes what it was always meant to be, a place of liberation, not confinement. Thank you for sharing this space of growth and reflection with me. Your openness made it meaningful. Until next time, stay inspired, stay grounded, and keep walking in the light of your own truth.